never thought of my grandmother's house as dangerous. It was just a house in a small rural town, a few hours away from the nearest city. One main road, cornfields on both sides, a patch of woods behind the property, a shallow creek that flooded every spring. The kind of place people describe as quiet. My parents used to send me there every summer when I was a kid. I stayed for weeks at a time, sometimes the whole vacation. I was 8 years old the first summer I realized something was wrong. Not wrong like broken or ugly, wrong like watched. My grandmother, Ruth, became careful about everything after sunset. During the day, the house was alive. Neighbors stopped by, chickens wandered through the yard. My uncle fixed fences on the porch. My grandmother cooked while humming old church songs. But every evening, right when the sky started turning orange, she changed. She would pause, look toward the woods behind the house. Then she would say, "Come inside now." Not loudly, not angry, just final. We were never allowed outside after dark. Not to check the mailbox, not to grab firewood, not even to stand on the porch. The back door was the most important. It opened to a dirt trail that led straight into the woods. During the day, it was just a path deer used. At night, she locked it with 2 locks. Not 1, 2. And she slid a wooden beam across it. I asked her once why. She said, "Because something walks at night." I laughed. I thought she meant coyotes, but she didn't laugh. She said, "Not animals." That's when I felt it, that first cold feeling in my stomach. There were rules, not written, not explained, just followed. All windows closed before dark, curtains drawn tight, only lamps inside. The back of the house stayed dark. The front porch light stayed on. The back never did. The house had 3 bedrooms and a narrow kitchen. We slept on mattresses on the floor. I slept beside my cousin, Jake. He was a year older than me and fearless. One night after dinner, he whispered, "Let's go outside." I shook my head. He said, "What's the worst thing that could happen?" Before I could answer, Grandma Ruth spoke from the sink, "Don't talk about outside after dark." Her voice wasn't sharp. It was tired, like someone who had said it too many times. There was something else, sound. At night, she turned on an old box fan near where we slept. It was loud, rattled like it might fall apart, even in winter, even when it was cold. I hated it. It dried my mouth, blew dust in my face. I asked her to turn it off once. She said, "Sleep with the noise." I said, "Why?" She didn't answer. She just turned it higher. The first night I heard it, I thought it was a person. It was past midnight. The fan was running. Everyone was asleep. I woke up because it felt like someone was standing too close. That instinct, that pressure. I didn't move. Then I heard footsteps outside. Not running, not sneaking. Walking, slow, on the dirt behind the house. Step, pause, step, pause. I wanted to believe it was a deer, but deer don't stop and stand. This thing did. Right behind the wall of our room. I heard breathing, wet, heavy, like someone breathing through their mouth. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then came scratching, soft, careful, on the back door. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My body wouldn't work. I listened to the fan and waited for it to leave. Eventually, the footsteps moved away, slowly, toward the trees. In the morning, I saw scratches on the door, long, vertical, too high for a dog. I told my grandmother. She didn't look surprised. She asked, "Did you get up?" I said no. She nodded. "That's good." I said, "What was it?" She said, "Something that checks houses." That word, checks, like it was inspecting. It came back every few nights, always after midnight, always behind the house. Sometimes it walked the wall. Sometimes it stood still. Sometimes it made a low sound. Not a growl, not a cry, like a throat trying to speak. I never saw it. We were never allowed to look. Wooden shutters covered the windows, cloth stuffed into the cracks. "No looking," she said. "Never look." I asked my Uncle Mark. He said, "Old stories, don't worry." But he slept with a rifle beside the bed. One evening, Jake got brave. He said, "It's just a coyote." And after dinner, when Grandma was busy, he opened the back door. I followed him. Moonlight and shadows. The trail was empty. He laughed. "See?" Then something moved near the trees. Not fast, not slow. Just shifted. Tall. Standing. Still. Jake froze. I froze. It took one step forward, and Grandma screamed from inside, "Get in!" We ran. She slammed the door and locked it. That night she hit Jake. Not hard, but with fear in her eyes. She said, "If it sees your face, it remembers it." That sentence stayed with me forever. After that, she added another rule. Every night before locking the door, she placed a bowl of rice and salt outside, near the threshold. I asked why. She said, "So it eats and leaves." I asked, "What does it eat?" She said, "Not us." I noticed patterns. It came more often when the sky was dark. On nights with no moon, it came closer. On bright nights, it stayed back. One night, I heard it right outside our room, breathing, sniffing, like it knew where we slept. The fan covered most of it, not all. That's when I understood. The fan wasn't for air, it was for sound. The worst night happened after rain. The ground smelled like mud. No insects, no frogs, just the fan. Then, a knock. Not on the front door, on the back. 3 soft knocks. Not human rhythm, heavy, slow. Then a voice, low, wrong, like something trying to copy speech. Grandma Ruth stood up. She didn't turn on the light. She didn't answer. She stood between us and the door. The voice tried again, closer, then scratching, harder. I hid my face. I thought the door would break, but it didn't. After a long time, it left, dragging steps. In the morning, the bowl was empty, not spilled, gone, and in the dirt were footprints. Too long, too many joints. Grandma's hands shook as she filled the bowl again. She said, "It's getting closer."
That summer ended early. My dad came and took me home. He said, "You look pale." I didn't explain why. Years passed. I grew up. I told myself it was fear, stories, until Grandma died. The house stayed empty. Uncle Mark stayed there alone. 3 months later, he left. He wouldn't say why. The back door was broken, the beam was snapped, and the bowl was still outside, full of old black rice. I went back once as an adult, just once. The house was silent, dust everywhere, fan dead, back door open, the woods closer than I remembered. I stood there and listened, and I swear, I heard breathing from behind the house, waiting. For years, I told myself the house was just an old memory, that fear fades when you grow up, that childhood fills empty spaces with monsters, that nothing really comes at night. I believed that, until my Uncle Mark finally told me why he left. It was 10 years after my grandmother died. We were sitting in his garage drinking cheap beer. The radio was on, crickets outside. I asked him why he never sold the house. He went quiet. Then he said, "It still comes." I laughed. He didn't. He said, "You remember the rules?" I nodded. He said, "I broke one." After Grandma Ruth died, he stayed alone in the house. At first, nothing happened. He said the nights were quiet, no scratching, no breathing, for 2 weeks. Then one night, he forgot to put the bowl outside. He fell asleep on the couch watching TV, woke up to silence. Not normal silence, the kind that feels heavy. No fan, no insects. He said he felt watched. Then he heard the first knock, soft, on the back door. He thought it was a person. He shouted, "Go away." It knocked again, slower. Then came the voice, low, broken, not words, like a throat trying to remember language. He grabbed his rifle, stood in the hallway, didn't open the door, didn't answer, just stood there. After a long time, it left. In the morning, he found hand marks on the door, not scratches, smears, like something had pressed its palms flat against the wood. He put the bowl back that night, but it came anyway. He said it started coming earlier, not after midnight, before, sometimes right after sunset, sometimes when the sky was still blue. It didn't knock anymore. It walked around the house, slow, deliberate, checking windows, breathing near walls. Sometimes it scratched the siding. Sometimes it tapped the glass, not hard, just enough to let him know it was there. He stopped sleeping in the bedroom, slept in the living room with the TV on loud, the fan on full, lights on. He said the sound made it hesitate, like it didn't like noise. But noise didn't make it leave, it only made it wait. One night, he forgot to close the bathroom window, small window, high. He said he was brushing his teeth when he heard something scrape outside, not on the door, above, near the window. Then breathing, right there, on the glass. He dropped the toothbrush, turned off the light, ran to the living room. He stayed awake until morning. The window had a smear on it, long, like a face pressed against it. No eyes, just shape. He started asking neighbors, old ones, the kind who remembered the land before houses were built. One woman told him that thing lived here before roads. Another man said it walks tree lines. Someone else said it comes when the woods get hungry. No one had a real name for it. No one had a story about killing it. Only stories about feeding it, keeping it out, making sure it didn't see your face. One old man said, if it sees you clearly, it follows you. Mark asked, follows you where? The old man said, inside. That scared him more than anything else, because by then, he thought it already had seen him. It started knocking on the front door too, not just the back. One night, it knocked on the window near the couch. 3 times, slow. He shouted at it. It knocked again. He fired his rifle through the window. The sound echoed across the fields. Silence. No scream. No movement. In the morning, there were no tracks, just the broken glass, and deep marks in the dirt below the window, like something had been crouching there. He stopped staying in the house at night, drove into town and slept in his truck. During the day, he fixed the damage. He boarded windows, put bars on the back door, left bowls at both doors. Sometimes they were empty, sometimes they were untouched. But every night when he drove away, he saw marks in the dirt, footprints that didn't match any animal, long, jointed, too many bends. The last night he stayed was the worst. He told me this part in a whisper, like it could still hear him. He said he was packing, lights on, TV on, fan on. Then everything went quiet. Not slowly, instant. TV shut off, fan stopped, lights dimmed, like the power had been swallowed. Then he heard it inside, not in the house, inside the walls, moving, scraping, between rooms, above the ceiling, below the floor, like it was learning the shape of the house. He ran out the front door barefoot, didn't lock it, didn't look back. He slept in his truck that night and never went back. After he told me all this, I didn't speak for a long time. He said, it knows the house is empty now. I asked, then why doesn't it leave? He said, because it remembers. I didn't plan to go back, but a year later, I had to. The county was selling off abandoned property. Someone had to clean it out. I volunteered. I don't know why. Curiosity, stupidity, closure? I drove out on a cloudy day. The road looked smaller than I remembered, the woods closer. The house looked like it was sinking into the ground, windows broken, paint peeling, door hanging crooked. The back door was wide open. That felt wrong. I stood in the yard and listened. Wind in leaves. No birds. No insects. The air smelled like wet bark. I went inside. Dust everywhere. Furniture still there. Fan on the floor where it had fallen. The hallway felt longer, narrower. I cleaned all day. Found old photos. Found Grandma's apron. Found the stick Uncle Mark used to sleep with. I didn't find the bowl. That scared me, because someone had taken it. It started getting dark before I noticed. I told myself I'd leave soon, just finish one room. The back of the house was cold, even though it was summer. I heard something outside. Footsteps, on the dirt, behind the house. Slow, deliberate. I froze. The sound circled the wall, stopped, breathing, wet, close. I told myself, animals make noise, old houses echo. I went toward the front door. Then it knocked, on the back, once, then again, slow, heavy, the same rhythm from childhood. I didn't answer. I didn't move. Then I heard it try the handle. Metal moved, soft, testing. Then came the voice. Not words, not quite sound, like a throat clearing, like something practicing speech. It said something that sounded like Ma. Not grandma, not a name, just the sound. My legs gave out. I sat on the floor. Then it scratched, harder. Wood cracked. I ran, out the front door, down the steps, to the car. I didn't look back. I drove until I hit pavement. I didn't go home. I went to a motel. That night, I dreamed of the house. In the dream, it was empty. No doors, no windows, just walls, and something walking inside them. I never went back. The county eventually tore the house down, burned the debris, plowed the land, built nothing. No one bought it. They say the soil won't hold a foundation. They say pipes burst. They say animals avoid it. I don't know if it's true. I only know this. Some nights, when I'm alone, when the house is quiet, when the fan is off, I hear something outside. Not knocking, just breathing. I didn't hear about the girl until 6 months after the house was torn down. A local paper mentioned it in a short article near the back. No picture, no big headline, just teen reported missing near former Rutledge property. That was the land where my grandmother's house used to be. I read the article 3 times. 16 years old. Name, Emily Carter. Last seen walking home from a friend's house at dusk. Her shortcut crossed the old property. They searched the woods, the creek, the nearby farms. They found nothing. No blood, no clothing, no trail, just nothing. That scared me more than if they had found a body. I drove out there again, not to the house. There was no house, just dirt, weeds, burn marks in the soil where the old beams had been burned. The woods were closer now. No fence, no back door, just open ground. I stood there and listened. Wind, leaves, then something else. Breathing. Not loud, not far, close enough that I could feel it in my chest. I got back in my car and left. That was the last time I went to the land. But the land didn't forget me. I started dreaming again. Not like childhood dreams, adult dreams, sharper, more detailed. I dreamed of the back door, even though there was no door anymore. In the dream, it was still there, scratched, warped, locked with 2 locks and a wooden beam. And something stood on the other side, not hitting it, not forcing it, just waiting. In every dream, the door handle moved a little, testing, learning. I started researching, not online, not forums, old records, library basement, county archives. I wanted to know what was there before the house, before my grandmother, before roads. I found a land map from the 1920s. The area was marked as unsettled woodland. Another document described it as unstable ground. No reason given. Then I found a handwritten letter from a farmer dated 1931. He wrote, "We do not build near the trees anymore. The night walker comes from there. It checks doors, it checks windows, it checks breath." That was the phrase, checks breath. I didn't understand it later. I found an old newspaper clipping from 1947. A boy went missing from a farmhouse at night. His parents said they heard knocking. They thought it was a neighbor. They opened the back door. They found nothing. In the morning, his bed was empty, window unbroken, door closed, no tracks, just wet marks on the floor near where he slept, like something had stood there and dripped. The parents went insane. The house burned a year later. Same land, different house, same ending. It didn't hunt, it didn't chase, it waited. It came when people lived close enough to trees, close enough to paths, close enough to night. It didn't break in, it didn't force. It only came in when someone let it, either by opening a door or by being seen clearly. That's what my grandmother meant. If it sees your face, it remembers it. That's what the old man meant. If it sees you clearly, it follows you inside. Not into the house, into your life. I finally understood the bowl. Rice and salt, not food, a distraction. Something to keep it outside, busy, long enough to leave. The noise, the fan, the TV, not protection, confusion. It didn't like sound because it used sound to find breath. Silence told you where you were. Noise blurred the shape of you. That's why it came closer on moonless nights. Dark made it rely on sound and breath. I didn't plan to write any of this down. But then the girl went missing. And then another. A boy this time. 14. Walking home after football practice. He cut across the woods. Never reached home. The sheriff said, probably ran away. But I knew better, because his house was near the land, and his mother told reporters. He said someone knocked on his window the night before. I went to see his family. I didn't tell them who I was. I just asked if he ever talked about noises. She said, he said something stood outside his room and breathed. I asked, did he look? She said, he thought it was his dad. I felt sick, because the thing tried to use voices. It didn't know words, but it knew tone. It copied the sound of people. It used familiarity. That's how doors opened. That's how windows opened. That's how rules broke. That night, I couldn't sleep. I turned the fan on. I turned the TV on. I left lights on. I felt ridiculous. Then I heard something outside my own house. Not knocking, not walking, just standing, breathing, wet, close, on the wall of my bedroom. I didn't move, didn't look, didn't answer. After a long time, it left, but I knew it had found me. 2 weeks later, the sheriff called. He said they found something near the old land, a jacket, the boy's jacket, hanging from a tree branch. Not torn, not dirty, just placed there, like something wanted it seen, like something was checking who noticed. That was when I decided to do the one thing no one had done. Not feed it, not avoid it, not move away, but understand it. I went back to the land at night, not to stay, not to challenge it, just to watch. I parked far away and walked close enough to see the open dirt. Moonless night, no wind, no insects. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, measured, not animal, not human. It walked the line where the house used to be, where the back door once stood. Then it stopped, and it breathed. Heavy, wet, like lungs that didn't belong to air. I stayed hidden. Then it did something new. It made a sound like M. Not a word, a shape of one. Then again, M. Ill. It was trying. I ran. I didn't look back. The next missing person was a woman, 35, night jogger. She ran near the woods. People thought she was attacked, but there was no blood, no signs of struggle, just her phone on the trail, still playing music, still loud. That's when I knew the noise rule had changed. Noise didn't scare it anymore. It learned. I dreamed of my grandmother again. She was standing in the kitchen, fan on, door behind her. She said, "We only kept it out." I said, "Can it be killed?" She said, "No." I said, "Can it be trapped?" She said, "It traps." I said, "What does it want?" She said, "To be inside." The old houses didn't matter. The land did. As long as people lived near it, as long as someone opened a door, it would keep checking. 3 months later, a family moved into a rental near the woods. They didn't know. They didn't have rules. They didn't have bowls. They didn't have fans. They had a back porch with glass doors and a child. I drove past their house one evening. I saw the porch light on, curtains open, back door unlocked, and I felt the same cold feeling I felt when I was 8 years old. The feeling of being watched from the trees. I left a note in their mailbox. No name, just this. Lock your back door at night. Do not answer knocking. Do not look outside. Make noise while you sleep. I didn't know if they would listen. Most people don't, because most people don't believe until something checks their house. 1 week later, police lights filled the road. An ambulance. The father alive. The mother alive. The child missing. Back door open. No signs of forced entry. Just wet marks on the floor near the child's bed, like something had stood there and breathed. The sheriff said, "Animal." I said nothing, because animals don't knock. Animals don't speak. Animals don't wait. Now I sleep with fans in every room, TV on, lights on. I don't answer doors after dark. I don't go near the woods at night. I don't open windows. I don't listen to voices outside. Because the thing that checks houses has learned how to check people. The first person to survive opening the door was a woman named Karen Mills. She didn't tell anyone at first, not the police, not her family, not the news. She told a nurse, and the nurse told a doctor, and the doctor told a therapist, and the therapist wrote it down. That's how I found out, because the therapist contacted the county after Karen tried to hurt herself. She said she wanted to be somewhere with walls, not because she was scared, because she didn't want to be checked again. Karen lived in a rental near the old land. Small house, 1 child, divorced. She worked late, came home after dark most nights. She said it started with knocking, not every night, just enough to notice. She thought it was kids at first, then animals, then nothing. One night, she heard her son's voice outside her bedroom door, saying, "Mom?" Her son was asleep beside her. She said she didn't think. She opened the door. The hallway was empty. She said the air smelled like wet leaves. Then she heard breathing, not in front of her, behind her. She turned and saw it. Not fully, not like a body, like a shape wearing darkness, too tall for the hallway, bent. Its face was wrong, not because it was ugly, because it was unfinished. No eyes, just shallow dents. A mouth that opened and closed too slow, like it didn't know what to do with it. It leaned closer, and she said it smelled her. Not sniffed, smelled, like a breath test. She slammed the door and ran. She grabbed her son and locked herself in the bathroom. She stayed there until morning. When she checked the hallway, there were wet marks, hand-shaped, on the wall. She said something else, something worse. She said when she saw it, she felt like it saw her whole life. Not her body, her routine, her habits, her sounds. It learned. That's what made it dangerous. It didn't need to force doors. It just needed people to open them. That was the first rule broken. Never open the door. But there were more rules. I started writing them down. From stories, from old letters, from people who heard it but lived. The rules weren't magic. They were behavior. Do not answer voices after dark. It copies tone, not words. Do not look outside at night. It remembers faces. Do not sleep in silence. It finds breath by sound. Do not leave doors unlocked. It tests handles. Do not go near the trees after sunset. It comes from the line where woods meet land. If it knocks, do not knock back. It learns patterns. If it is inside, do not run. It follows movement.
That last one came from a man who lived. His name was Thomas Reed. He was drunk when it happened. He lived alone. He heard knocking and thought it was a neighbor. He opened the back door. It was standing on his porch. He screamed. It leaned forward, not fast, not slow, like it was curious. He ran, not outside, inside, into the hallway, into the bedroom, under the bed. He said it followed him inside, not walking, sliding, like it moved along shadows. It stood near the bed. He said it listened to him breathe. He held his breath. So did it, for a long time. Then it left. He passed out, woke up with wet marks around the bed frame. He moved away the next day. He never slept without noise again. The worst part was this: it didn't take people right away. It learned them first. It watched them, listened, mapped their rooms, their routines. Then it came back, when doors were open, when windows were cracked, when someone was tired enough to answer. I realized something else. It didn't like groups. It didn't take people when others were awake. It preferred one, alone, quiet, separated. That's why it took children, joggers, people walking home, people who answered doors. I started going to town meetings, not officially. I sat in the back, listened. They talked about lighting, about patrols, about coyotes. No one talked about knocking. No one talked about voices, because no one wanted to sound crazy, except me, and I didn't speak. Because the moment you say it, people stop listening. Then it happened closer to me. My neighbor's dog went missing. Backyard faced the woods. Gate was open. No blood, no tracks. Just the leash on the porch, chewed through, like something didn't understand rope. That night, I heard it near my fence. Not walking, standing, breathing. I didn't turn the fan off. I didn't turn the TV down. I didn't look. I just waited. 3 days later, a man named Harold survived. He opened the door and fought it. He was a big man, 6'4", former construction worker. He thought it was a burglar. He swung a crowbar. He said it felt like hitting a bag of wet cloth. It didn't bleed. It didn't fall. It leaned. And he said when it leaned, he felt pressure in his chest, like his breath wasn't his anymore. He backed up, slipped, hit the wall. It didn't come closer. It stood and breathed. Then it stepped back outside. He locked the door. He moved in with his daughter. He said, "It doesn't need to hurt you to take you." That sentence made no sense until later.
The sheriff finally asked the state for help. Not officially, quietly. 2 wildlife officers came. They set cameras near the woods, trail cams, night cameras. They recorded nothing. No shape, no body, just sound. Audio picked up breathing, heavy, close. No footsteps, no animal calls, just breath, like lungs too big for a chest. The officers left. They said, probably atmospheric. People laughed. Then another person went missing. I started sleeping in my basement. No windows, concrete walls, fan on, radio on, lights on. I didn't care if I looked crazy. I wanted walls, because walls mattered. Doors mattered. Rules mattered. The next person to open the door was a boy named Aaron, 13. His parents heard him scream. They ran to his room. The window was open. The curtain was pulled aside. They said he told them, "Someone outside is saying my name." They told him to ignore it. He went back to bed. An hour later, his bed was empty. No broken glass, no tracks, just wet marks on the carpet, like something had knelt there. That's when I knew it didn't just check houses, it checked rooms, beds, breath. It didn't need doors anymore. If it learned a voice, if it learned a sound, it could be invited through attention, through looking, through listening. I went back to the land one last time, not at night, at dusk. I stood where the back door used to be. The tree line was thick, dark, too close. I said out loud, "What do you want?" Nothing answered, but the wind stopped, and the woods felt deeper, like something inside them had turned its head. I went home and wrote everything down, every rule, every pattern, every story. I sent copies to the sheriff, to the county, to the newspaper. They didn't print it. They didn't reply. They locked the thread online when someone posted it, because it sounded like fear, and fear looks like fiction until it breathes on your wall. Karen moved away. Thomas moved away. Harold moved away. Everyone who survived left. Everyone who stayed didn't last long. Not all at once, one by one. Quiet, like it preferred. I haven't seen it, not fully, but I've felt it. Outside my house, inside my dreams, testing, learning, waiting for me to make a mistake.
The land is still empty. No house, no sign, just weeds and dirt. But something still walks there, checking, listening, waiting for doors that no longer exist. I used to believe the rules would keep me safe, that if I did everything right, locked doors, noise at night, no windows open, no answering voices, no looking outside, then it would never choose me. I was wrong. The rules don't protect you. They just delay you. It started with my sleep changing. Not nightmares, not fear. Routine. I began waking up at exactly the same time every night, 2:14 a.m. Not because of a sound, not because of a dream, because my body felt observed. That feeling when you wake up and your heart is already racing, like it knows something before your brain does. I lay still, fan running, radio murmuring low. I didn't look at the window, I didn't look at the door, but I listened, and I heard it. Breathing. Not outside the house, inside, in the hallway. Not walking, not moving, just existing. The sound was wrong for a human lung. Too deep, too wet, like air moving through something that wasn't meant for air. I held my breath. The breathing paused. We stayed like that for what felt like hours. Then it stopped, and I didn't sleep again until morning. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same place. Closer, near my bedroom door. The fan didn't hide it anymore. The radio didn't confuse it. It had learned my noise, learned my pattern, learned me. That's when I understood the worst rule. If it comes back for you, it already knows your shape. Not your body, your routine, your fear, your habits, your mistakes. On the third night, I heard something else. Not breathing, a sound, a word shape. Not a real word, just the curve of one. Like someone trying to say my name with a mouth that didn't know how. Mom. It didn't finish, it just tried.
I stayed in bed, didn't move, didn't answer, but something inside me did. Something small and stupid and human. Hope. Hope that it was just sound, just pipes, just air. Hope is what it waits for. The next day, my neighbor knocked on my door. Daylight, real knock, human rhythm. I opened it. That was mistake number 1. She said, "Did you hear anything last night?" I asked, "What?" She said, "My husband heard breathing near our shed." I didn't answer. I just felt cold. She said, "He wants to check the woods tonight." That was mistake number 2. I told her not to. She laughed, said I watched too many scary movies. That night, I heard screaming, not from the woods, from her house. I didn't run out, I didn't look. I locked my door. The police came, lights flashing. They found her husband's jacket hanging on the fence. No blood, no body, just absence. That's when it stopped waiting. The knocking started. Not hard, not fast. Once, on my back door. Then again, slow, heavy, not human rhythm. I sat in my bedroom with the fan on full, TV on loud, lights on. I didn't answer. Then the voice came, clearer now. Not my voice, not hers, something in between. Open. Not a word, a sound shaped like one. I didn't move. Then it did something new. It knocked on my bedroom wall from the inside. 3 slow taps. That's when I realized it didn't need doors anymore. It didn't need permission. It just needed attention. And I had given it years of it. Through fear, through memory, through writing, through thinking about it. I grabbed my keys, didn't pack, didn't turn anything off. I ran to my car and drove. Didn't look in the mirrors, didn't look back at the house. I drove until the sky started turning gray. I checked into a motel, slept with the TV on, fan on, bathroom light on. For 2 days, nothing happened. I started to believe leaving worked. On the 3rd night, I heard breathing in the motel hallway, outside my door. Soft, wet, close. I didn't open it. I didn't answer, but I felt it standing there, learning a new place, mapping new walls.
That's when I understood what it really was. It wasn't tied to the land anymore. The land was just where it learned. It learned how to check houses, then rooms, then people. And now, it learned me. It didn't live in the woods. It lived in patterns, in habits, in night, in breath, in fear. You don't escape something that lives in those. You just change where it waits. I went somewhere with no woods, no trails, no empty land. A city, high-rise apartment, 10th floor, concrete, no back door, no trees, no paths. I thought height mattered. It didn't. The first night, it wasn't there. The second night, it wasn't there. On the 3rd night, I heard breathing in the stairwell, above me. Not below, above. It learned stairs. It learned elevators. It learned walls without doors. I stopped sleeping at night. I slept during the day, with sunlight, with people outside, with sound that didn't belong to me. That worked for a while. Then it started coming during the day. Not fully, just the feeling, just the sound, just the pressure in the air, like something standing too close, not touching, not hurting, just checking. I tried something else. I stopped making noise. No fan, no radio, no TV. I wanted it to lose me. Instead, it found me faster. Silence was a map. Every breath was a signal. I understood then why my grandmother used noise, not to scare it, to blur herself, to become unfocused. So I did the one thing no one had done. I left no pattern, no routine, no schedule. I slept in my car, then in shelters, then in different towns,
different states. Never 2 nights in the same place. Never the same sound, never the same light. I lived like someone being hunted by something that didn't need eyes. That worked, for a while. Then, one night, in a rest stop bathroom, I heard it speak, clearly. Not words, but shape, sound, emotion, like something learning pain. Stay. Not a command, not a request, a question. I didn't answer. I ran. And I knew then what it wanted. Not bodies, not blood, not houses. Stability. Something that stayed. Something that let it exist in one place. It wasn't killing people. It was replacing them. Taking their rooms, their beds, their routines, their nights. That's why there was no struggle, no blood, no chase. It didn't take them. It took their place. I found proof of that in the last place I visited. A man in a rural clinic. They said he'd been found wandering naked near the woods. Didn't know his name, didn't know his home, didn't know words. Just made wet, breathing sounds. They kept him in a padded room because he didn't blink, didn't sleep, just stood and listened. I saw him through the window, and for the first time, I saw what it does to people. It doesn't eat you, it empties you, leaves the shape, takes the function, takes the night. That's why it breathes. That's why it checks. That's why it knocks. It's not asking to come in. It's asking if you're ready to leave. I don't know how long I can keep moving. I don't know how long I can keep breaking patterns. But I know this. It doesn't stop. It doesn't die. It doesn't forget. It only learns. And every time someone opens a door at night, every time someone answers a voice in the dark, every time someone sleeps in silence near trees, it gets better at being inside. If you live near woods, lock your doors, make noise, don't answer voices, don't look outside. And if you hear breathing where there shouldn't be breathing, do not move toward it, do not speak, do not ask what it is, because it already knows what you are. I still hear it sometimes, in hotel hallways, in stairwells, in empty houses when I pass them, checking, testing, waiting. Not for a door, for a mistake. And one day, when I finally stop moving, when I finally sleep in the same place twice, when I finally answer a knock that isn't human, it won't take me, it will become me.